One man, one bridge, 40 dead soldiers. September 25th, 1066. A single Norwegian Viking stands on a narrow wooden bridge in northern England, gripping a battle axe. Behind him, his army is scattered, weaponless, caught completely off guard. In front of him, the entire English military, thousands of armored warriors demanding he move. He laughs, and for the next hour, he turns that bridge into a graveyard. This isn't mythology. This is an exaggeration. This is the most insane last stand in medieval history, and it happens 3 weeks before the Battle of Hastings. By the time this day ends, a Viking invasion will be annihilated, one man will become a legend, and the fate of England will be sealed. Let me take you to Stamford Bridge, because what happens here is so unbelievable, you'll swear I'm making it up. September 1066. England is a powder keg. King Edward the Confessor just died with no clear heir, and now 3 men claim the throne. Harold Godwinson, the English earl who moved fastest, already crowned himself king in January. William of Normandy across the Channel, furious, preparing an invasion fleet. And Harald Hardrada, the king of Norway, a 6.5-foot Viking legend who spent 30 years conquering everything from Russia to the Mediterranean. Hardrada's nickname literally means hard ruler, and he's decided England is next on his list. Here's the thing, Hardrada doesn't just show up with a few longships. He brings 300 vessels, 20,000 Viking warriors, and he's got an English traitor with him, Tostig Godwinson, Harold's own brother, who's so bitter about losing his earldom that he's willing to burn England to get revenge. These two land in northern England in early September, and they rip through everything. They capture Scarborough. They sail up the River Ouse. And on September 20th, they smash an English force at the Battle of Fulford, just outside York, one of England's most important cities. York surrenders immediately. The Vikings set terms, hostages, supplies, and submission. They scheduled the exchange for September 25th at Stamford Bridge, a crossing point about 7 miles east. Now, picture the Vikings on September 24th. They're camped near Stamford Bridge, sprawled across both sides of the River Derwent, and they're celebrating. They just conquered northern England. The sun is blazing. It's an unusually hot day, so most of them have left their armor back at the ships. They're in tunics, leather, maybe a helmet if they're cautious. Hardrada and Tostig are confident. They think they've broken English resistance in the north. They think King Harold is still down south, 300 miles away, watching for William's invasion from Normandy. They think they have time. They're wrong, catastrophically wrong, because Harold Godwinson is not 300 miles away. He's not waiting around. The moment Harold hears about Fulford, he does something borderline insane. He force marches his entire army from London to Yorkshire in 4 days. 4 days. That's nearly 200 miles of medieval roads, full speed, no rest. His soldiers are exhausted, blistered, gasping. But Harold, a tactical genius, and he understands something crucial. Speed is a weapon. If he can hit the Vikings before they realize he's coming, before they can regroup, he can end this invasion in one brutal stroke. September 25th, early morning. The Vikings are lounging near Stamford Bridge, waiting for York's hostages to arrive. Some are fishing, some are drinking, some are napping in the grass. And then a scout comes sprinting into camp, screaming. There's an army coming, a massive English army, from the west, moving fast. Hardrada doesn't believe it at first. It's impossible. Harold can't be here. But then he sees the dust cloud. Then he sees the banners. The dragon standard of Wessex. The fighting man emblem of King Harold himself. And suddenly the Vikings understand they're about to fight the most important battle of their lives, and half of them aren't even wearing armor. Hardrada makes a desperate decision. He sends riders racing back to the ships to grab reinforcements and equipment. But those ships are miles away. It'll take hours. So he orders everyone on the east side of the river to cross the bridge immediately and form a shield wall on the west side, where there's a small hill they can defend. If they can hold that position until reinforcements arrive, maybe they survive. Maybe. But here's the problem. The bridge at Stamford Bridge is narrow, really narrow. maybe 10 feet wide, just enough for a wagon, and it's wooden, old, creaking over the River Derwent. Hundreds of Vikings are trying to funnel across this choke point while the English army is charging straight toward them. It's chaos. Men shoving, slipping, dropping weapons. Some Vikings don't make it across in time. Some are still gathering their weapons. And the English, they're crashing into the Viking position like a tidal wave. The fighting erupts instantly. The Vikings who made it across form a ragged shield wall on the hill. The English smash into them. Swords, axes, spears, screaming. Men going down in sprays of blood. The ground turning to mud. And slowly, brutally, the English start pushing the Vikings back. There are just too many of them. Harold brought the elite of his army. His housecarls. Professional warriors in chainmail with long axes and swords. They're cutting through the lightly armored Vikings like a scythe through wheat. The Vikings are dying. They're being overrun. And the ones still on the east side of the river, the ones who didn't make it across, are watching their army collapse. They're watching their king about to be slaughtered. They're screaming at each other, trying to figure out what to do. And that's when one man makes a choice. We don't know his name. The chronicles don't record it. But this Norwegian warrior, this Viking who probably fought in a dozen campaigns, who survived battles from Constantinople to the fjords, looks at that bridge. He looks at the English army preparing to cross. He looks at his trapped, dying comrades on the other side. And he picks up his axe, steps onto the bridge, and plants himself in the center. One man, 10-foot-wide bridge. And he decides that no Englishman is crossing today. You need to understand the geometry here. The bridge is so narrow that soldiers have to approach almost single file, maybe two abreast if they're shoulder to shoulder. And this Viking, he positions himself right in the middle where the wood is strongest, where he has room to swing. He's probably 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, gripping a long-handled Danish axe. Those massive two-handed weapons that can split a shield in one blow. And the English look at him and think, move or die. He doesn't move. The first English soldiers reach him. Professional warriors, some of the best in Harold's army. They've got swords, spears, shields. They outnumber this man 1,000 to 1. They tell him to stand aside. He swings. The axe comes around in a horizontal arc and catches the lead soldier in the ribs. The man goes down. The one behind him tries to stab with a spear. The Viking parries, steps forward, swings again. Another Englishman drops. Blood on the wood now. The bridge shaking. More soldiers rush him. They've got shields up, trying to form a mini wall, trying to overwhelm him with numbers. But the bridge is too narrow. They can't surround him. They can't flank him. All they can do is come at him from the front, and every time they do, that axe is waiting. Overhead chops that split helmets. Sweeping cuts that shatter legs. Thrusts that puncture throats. He's fighting in a space maybe 6 feet wide, and in that tiny killing zone, he's untouchable. The English try everything. They throw spears. He dodges or bats them away. They try to rush him in groups. He times his swings, catches a mid-charge, sends bodies tumbling into the river. They try to tire him out, rotating fresh soldiers to the front. He doesn't tire. The chronicles say he fought for an hour. A full hour. Do you understand what that means? Swinging a 10-pound axe nonstop in full combat for 60 minutes. Your arms would be screaming. Your lungs would be burning. But this man doesn't stop. He doesn't slow down. He doesn't step back. And behind him, on the east side of the river, the surviving Vikings are using the time he's buying them. They're gathering weapons. They're putting on whatever armor they can find. They're forming up, getting ready to fight. Because this one warrior, this nameless legend, is giving them the chance Hardrada's reinforcements couldn't. He's holding the entire English army at the bridge. Alone, the bodies are piling up now. 10 Englishmen, 20, 30. The bridge is slick with blood. Soldiers are slipping, stumbling over corpses, and every time they do, the axe finds them. The English commanders are losing their minds. How is this happening? How is one man stopping an entire army? They send more soldiers. Elite fighters. It doesn't matter. The bridge is a choke point, and in a choke point, numbers mean nothing. Skill means everything, and this Viking has skill earned in a lifetime of war. But here's the thing about last stands. They all end. Physics doesn't care about courage. At some point, you make a mistake. You slow down. Your grip weakens. The English know they can't beat him from the front, so they start thinking laterally. And one English soldier, some quick-thinking warrior whose name also isn't recorded, looks at the bridge. Really looks at it. It's wooden. It's old. There are gaps between the planks. And underneath the bridge, there's a river. This Englishman finds a small boat, or a barrel, something that floats. He strips off his armor, climbs into the river, and paddles silently underneath the bridge, underneath the Viking who's killed 40 of his comrades. The water is cold, flowing, but he steadies himself. He's got a spear. He looks up through the gaps in the planks. He can see the Viking's boots moving, hear the impact of the axe, the screams of dying men. He waits for the right moment. The Viking swings. For a split second, he's off balance, weight shifted, and the Englishman thrusts upward. The spear punches to the gap in the wood and drives into the Viking's groin or lower abdomen. Accounts vary, but it's a gut wound. Something catastrophic. The Viking staggers, blood pouring down. He knows it's over. He's still gripping the axe, still standing, but the strength is draining out of him. He takes one more swing, drops another Englishman, and then collapses. His body falls on a bridge, blocking it even in death. The English surge forward. They drag his body aside, and they flood across the bridge like a broken dam. The Vikings on the east side try to hold them. Some fight, some run. It doesn't matter. The delay is over. Harold's army crashes into them with the fury of men who just watched 40 brothers die to one warrior. The slaughter is total. The Vikings are cut down by the hundreds. Hardrada rallies his men on the hill. He's still in command, still trying to salvage this disaster. But the English outnumber him, outflank him, and they're fighting with vengeance in their hearts. An English arrow catches Hardrada in the throat. The 6.5-foot legend goes down, choking on his own blood. Tostig takes command, tries to organize a retreat. He dies minutes later, cut down in the chaos. The Viking army disintegrates. They run for the ships. Most don't make it. The English hunt them through fields and forests, killing anything that moves. Of the 300 ships that came to England, only 24 leave. That's how complete the destruction is. If that bridge warrior stand hit your soul, if you felt the weight of 40 men falling to one axe, let me know. And comment this. What would you have named him? Because history forgot, but we don't have to. Subscribe if you believe that one person in the right place can change everything. Because in 3 weeks, Harold's going to face William at Hastings, and his army will still be bleeding from today. Stamford Bridge breaks the Viking ages back in England. It's the last major Scandinavian invasion of the British Isles. Hardrada, one of the most feared warriors in Europe, is dead. His army is annihilated. And Harold Godwinson just pulled off one of the most stunning victories in medieval warfare. But here's the cruel twist of history. Harold doesn't get to celebrate. 2 days after Stamford Bridge, messengers arrive with news. William of Normandy has landed in the south. Harold has to march his exhausted, bloodied army 200 miles back to face a fresh Norman invasion. And we all know how that ends. Hastings, October 14th. Harold takes an arrow to the face. England falls to the Normans. But think about the what-ifs. What if that Viking hadn't held the bridge? What if the English had crossed immediately and slaughtered the Vikings before they could organize? Harold would have won faster, suffered fewer casualties, had a stronger, more rested army at Hastings. Maybe he beats William. Maybe England stays Anglo-Saxon. Maybe the entire trajectory of European history shifts. One man, one bridge, 1 hour. That's how thin the line is between victory and defeat. The English buried their dead. They threw the Viking corpses in mass graves. And the story of the bridge warrior spread. In Norse sagas and English chronicles, soldiers told the tale around campfires for generations. Some versions say he killed 40. Some say more. The numbers probably got exaggerated over the years. But the core truth remains. One man held an army at a bridge long enough to give his comrades a fighting chance. He didn't win the battle. He didn't save the invasion. But he bought time with his life, and in war, time is everything. There's something in that stand that echoes across centuries. The Spartans at Thermopylae, Custer at Little Bighorn, the Alamo. Humans are drawn to last stands because they represent something we desperately want to believe about ourselves. That when everything is lost, when retreat is impossible, when death is certain, we might find the courage to stand anyway. Not because we'll win, but because some things are worth dying for. Comrades, cause, code. The Viking on Stamford Bridge had all of those, and he chose the bridge. History moved on. The Norman conquest reshaped England. Castles replaced wooden halls. French mingled with Old English and created a new language. The feudal system took root. The Viking age faded into legend. But in Yorkshire, near a town called Stamford, there's still a bridge over the River Derwent. Not the original. That rotted away centuries ago, but a bridge nonetheless. And if you stand there on a quiet morning, you can almost hear it. The creak of wood, the ring of steel, the defiance of one man who decided that on this day, on this bridge, he would make the English pay for every single step, 40 times over. In 3 words, tell me what that Viking represents to you. Like this video if you believe courage isn't about winning. It's about standing when everyone else runs. And subscribe because next time, we're diving into the Battle of Hastings, where Harold's exhausted warriors face William's knights, and England's fate is decided in a single bloody afternoon. You won't want to miss it. That Viking's name is lost. His face is forgotten. His grave is unmarked. But his stand? That echoes forever. One man, one bridge, 40 dead soldiers, and an hour that proves sometimes the smallest choke point creates the greatest legends. He didn't change the outcome of the war, but he changed what it cost. And in the end, that's what heroes do. They make the enemy pay. Remember Stamford Bridge. Remember the bridge warrior. Because courage isn't measured in victories. It's measured in stands. And his was perfect.